Alo, xin chào mọi người. Hôm nay là một ngày đặc biệt. Sản phẩm này, video này cũng là một video đặc biệt. Nói thật các bạn, chưa bao giờ tớ thấy đặc biệt như này. Giờ là 10 rưỡi tối, tớ hơi điên khi tớ không nghĩ ra cái gì reaction. Thì đây sẽ là 5 câu chuyện kinh dị hay nhất tháng 4 của một bên OneC Việt Sắp. Cảm ơn bên OneC, cảm ơn các bạn OneC rất nhiều. Trời ơi, nhưng mà các bạn ơi, hỡi những fan kênh virus, hỡi những fan kinh dị, hỡi những fan mê virus reaction, hãy cho một like và chia sẻ video, đó là động lực rất lớn để tôi có thể tiếp tục reaction kinh dị. Rồi ơi, tôi có tình cảm, tối nay tôi to đít rồi. Mẹ ơi, kinh dị. Let's go. Nhạc ta thấy vãi đái rồi.
It was April 1st, 2001. I was at home watching TV when I heard a big bang on my back door. I didn't know who or what it was. Thought it was a raccoon or something. So I kept watching TV. I will never forget what I heard. Someone whispered, "I am coming for you." I turned to see who it was, but no one was there. I went outside and yelled, "Who's there?" I went back inside, and then I saw it. It was a man with a white rabbit mask holding a kitchen knife. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife and turned on the light. The guy took off his mask, and it was my friend, Fred. I was relieved, and he yelled, "April Fools!" I asked how he managed to get so far when he whispered in my ear. He looked confused. To my surprise, he said, "I never whispered in your ear." That's when I knew something was in my house. I told Fred to hide and call the cops. When the cops got there, they saw a man with long black hair robbing stuff from my house. He had a pistol and some pocket knives. The cops told me he had broke out of prison a couple days before the incident.
Trận mặt lèn vì làm phim với kinh vãi cứ hết cả hồn giật cả mình. Bát kinh vậy này. Người ông ăn những mảnh kinh bỡ. Ui, kinh ấy, nghe thế kìa.
Back then, my brother and I used to play with a lot of guns, especially water guns.
Chỉ là súng nước mà thôi.
One night, we got our flashlights and pretended we were the police. It was around 10 p.m. We were in the backyard with my brother's friend playing when we saw a tall black guy. We were just staring at him. I don't know who he was or why he was there. Then he suddenly said, "Hey, can I play with you?" "Bitch, please," my brother said. Then the tall guy seemed to go into a strange position and smiled at us creepily. I was so scared. So I aimed my gun at the guy when my flashlight lit up the face of the man. I will never forget what I saw. There was a big X on the middle of his forehead, and the guy was eating a piece of glass, literally eating it and bleeding. We didn't know what to do while we ran back into the house. My brother's friend jumped outside the fence and he didn't come back. We were standing near the window and my brother told me to call Mom and Dad. When I called my mom, I heard a loud smash coming from the big window on the front door. My brother quickly grabbed my shirt and dragged me upstairs.
Thôi xong rồi.
At that moment, I couldn't talk to my mom because then I would make a sound. We stayed silent for about 20 seconds.
Thôi xong rồi.
Then we heard a footstep near my side. I was about to tilt my head to take a look when I suddenly heard a gun get reloaded. My brother quickly punched the guy. I ran so fast downstairs. We had to live. We were almost to the door when we heard a gunshot. We quickly ran to the nearest neighborhood and told someone what happened. We called Mom and Dad and also dialed 911. When the police came to our house, they found fresh blood trails from the living room to the bathroom. There, they found the guy bleeding to death, as if the guy wanted us to watch him commit suicide, possibly kill us. I don't know, but that was some serious madhouse shit, and I would never ever forget what happened. Black-eyed woman. I was 11 years old at the time. It was a horrible event. I lived in Texas, but my family decided to go to California during the summer of 2015. It wasn't going to be a long time, so my family of 6, including me, stayed at my aunt's house. One night, my parents went to a party, and both of my brothers and I didn't want to go, so we stayed behind. My aunt's daughter stayed with us too. It was around 6 p.m. My parents said they were coming back around 2 a.m. Hearing that gave me goosebumps, since we were staying at a 2-story house. I've always been scared of 2-story houses for this reason. As soon as our parents left, we all decided to eat snacks. Well, we wanted to, but there weren't any. My cousin asked us if we wanted to go to the store with her. Since she was already 19, she could drive by herself. My brother said yes, but I told him I do want snacks, but I don't want to go. I thought that my brothers would want to stay behind too, since they were just 2 years older than me. But instead, they just said, okay. They all left without me. I was all alone. 15 minutes in, I was sitting on the couch playing on my iPad. Suddenly, I heard a sound coming from upstairs. I decided to check what it was, but as soon as I started to go up the stairs, a glass cup fell down the stairs. I ran to my uncle's room and hid inside the closet. After 2 minutes of hiding, the lights in the room started flashing. I could see it from the crack under the door. I wanted to text my brother, but I left the iPad on the couch. Soon after, I heard another sound from upstairs. Well, that's how I knew that whatever was doing all this scary stuff was definitely upstairs. I decided to run out of the house, and then try to ask the next door neighbors to let me into their house for a bit. But before I could, I checked the upstairs window when I got outside, and I saw a figure in one of the rooms. It was a clear image since it was barely 7 p.m. The figure was definitely the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. I saw a woman with a black dress. She was pale and had dark eyes. It was as if she accidentally messed up her makeup and got black makeup all around her eyes. She also looked kind of like a nun. I stood there, watching her for like 10 seconds. And then I saw a car driving in from the side. I moved near the garage and the car came closer. It parked at the house. I realized it was my cousin with both of my brothers. I was relieved. They asked me why I was outside, and I said I wanted to take a picture of the house from outside. I didn't tell them the truth. They didn't realize I didn't have my iPad when I said this. Once we got inside the house, I followed them upstairs. I was obviously behind them since I was scared. Nothing happened the rest of the day until that night. It was 10 p.m. It was raining. I just wanted to see the thunder, so I moved the curtains to look out the window. Light came in because of the lightning. That's when I saw it again. The figure was in the neighbor's parkway, just staring at the house. I will never forget that night, no matter how hard I try. Sometimes, while I'm having fun, I'll stop and remember, and the thought always ruins my day. The thought that the woman from that night might always be out there, looking for me.
Why looking for me? Wow! Wow! Wow!
This event happened when I was around 13 years old. I was going on a family road trip with my parents and siblings. My brother was 16 at the time and my half-sister was 21. I don't completely remember where we were going or where we stayed since it was almost 15 years ago.
15 years
All I remember was that we rented a cottage in a small village. Next to the village was a lot of mountains surrounding the perimeter, and there were probably only 20 houses in the village. Next to the cottage was a small lake that was big enough to kayak in, and to the right of the little lake was a small shed. The shed was very old, and its ceiling had been poorly repaired. There was ivy growing all over it. Although this may not seem scary, the door was wide open and the place we were staying at was all fenced off with a really high fence. This probably meant that no one would be able to come into our property. Later that same day, my brother and I decided to check it out since we had nothing else to do other than swim in the lake before dinner. Bear in mind, this happened in the winter, meaning it would get dark much earlier than in the summer.
Hay
We
lắm
walked
cơ.
up towards the shed, and as we walked towards it, we realized that a source of light was shining through the ceiling. It didn't seem like it was a normal ceiling light, but was almost like a torch. We saw the light slowly move around in between the cracks of the shed. Then, in one sudden motion, the light randomly pointed at us. My brother and I were petrified by the situation. We both looked at each other with blank expressions. Our parents were in the lounge watching TV, so they wouldn't be able to hear us at all if we cried out for help. I don't like to be cliché, but my big brother is a very strong person, emotionally, physically, and mentally. So I was surprised when I saw his lower lip tremble out of the corner of my eye. I thought he was going to protect me by telling me what to do, but instead he just stood there, frozen, like me, with a petrified face as the bright light blinded us through the gaps between the walls of the shed for what felt like an eternity. Suddenly, the light switched off. A small sense of relief hit me as the light turned off, but I was still scared for my life. Because the light was shining on our faces for so long, our eyes were not used to the dark. When we tried to escape by running in the opposite direction towards the cottage, we couldn't see where we were going. Then, as if the situation couldn't get any worse, we heard a loud shuffling sound coming from the shed. We could hear the sound starting to crescendo as we ran silently towards the cottage. The sound was getting louder and louder. Soon after, I could just make out a hollow voice coming from behind us. I hesitantly looked behind me. To my horror, I saw a middle-aged man standing next to the shed with a flashlight in his hand. His hands were covered in what looked like blood, and his hair was greasy as if he never showered once in his life. He had a long beard that looked tangled and disgusting. In a faint voice, he said, "Come here, child. I have many toys in here. Do you want to play some games with me?" He said this with a creepy smile and eyes wide open without blinking. He looked as if he was talking to me. I instantly screamed as loud as I could, and my brother grabbed my hand with dear life as we sprinted back into the cottage. We told our parents what happened, and I hugged my brother and sister with tearful eyes. They didn't believe us at first because they were so shocked by the situation and so confused. But when they saw the monstrous man's face pressed up against the window with a bloody butcher's knife in his hand, they screamed in horror and immediately called the police. The police were nearby since it was a small town, but as the sirens came, we saw the man run back to his shed, and unfortunately, they never caught him. They asked us what he looked like and what he said to us. The police told us that a girl that looked similar to me and was roughly the same age as me was murdered last month because of that man we saw from the shed.
Cảnh sát không làm gì à? Phế vãi cầm nồi á.
What would have happened if we stayed in a busy town that weekend?
Vãi cả cái
or if the police didn't make it in time. I am now scared to go near sheds after that incident, and I will never be the same. A situation like this has not happened since, but I really hope that man is either caught or is being chased by the police, because those few moments scarred me for life.
Kinh quá. Ok. Thôi 5 phút cố xem tiếp vậy. Kinh quá phải không các bạn ơi. Xin một like một share đi, sợ quá.
Back when I was 21 years old, I was a strategic firearms commander.
This
meant that I led a team into dangerous situations that oftentimes involves hostages or civilians who carry guns or other deadly weapons. I had a second-in-command firearms commander working beside me. His name was Callum, and he was my best friend. We always hung out outside of work. But while on duty, he would always joke around and make us crack a smile, even when we were dealing with pretty distressful stuff. We once had a case where a man had possession of a firearm, and we were assigned to take care of it. Callum seemed particularly eager and jumped out of the van before it even came to a full stop. When the rest of the team reached the scene, the man was already shot. Callum still had the gun in his hand. Soon after, I asked Callum why he was so eager to do it. And then he said he had no specific reason. He was just excited. I believed him because he was my best friend. Later on, when I was looking at the man who was shot, I looked him up on social media and realized that he and Callum added each other on Facebook. Upon further investigation, I realized that there were thousands of messages sent between the two where Callum revealed sensitive information about several operations. I knew that he killed this man on purpose, but I had no way of proving it.
Whoa.
He was taken to court and was sentenced to 3 years in jail for perverting the court of justice. I testified against him and was no longer his friend. When I was 24 years old, I was still on the firearms team. All that happened with Callum was behind me, and I was happy with my life. One night I went home really late after work. As I walked to my apartment, I realized that it was trashed. I called the police and they reported it, but there was not much they could do because I didn't have a CCTV. As I got into bed, I saw that there was a note on my bedside table. All it said was, "Remember me?" I instantly recognized Callum's handwriting. And now that he was out of prison, I thought that he would move on with his life. I was so wrong. This was his revenge. The next day, I went to the underground parking lot and I saw that my windscreen was smashed. It was clear that he wasn't over me testifying against him. Soon after, I also saw him near my apartment. I ran after him, but he ignored me and ran away. I tried calling his old number, but it was no longer in service. Then an envelope was sent through my door, and it contained hundreds of photos of me at work, home, and even out with my girlfriend at clubs and restaurants.
What?
These were all taken very recently. The last one, though, was a picture of Callum and I from years ago, and on the other side, written with a big red marker, were the words, "You're dead."
You're dead.
I reported this as stalking and hoped he would end up back in prison. The police had gone to his listed address, but there was no one there. In fact, all of his bags were packed. I knew he was still in the area somewhere, though. One day I was by myself in an unmarked car, and I saw this Toyota Yaris, and it was driving close behind me. It was my gut instinct to get the plate number checked, and I was going to. But then I got a Priority 1 announcement on the radio saying there was a crazy man on a bus who had a knife and stabbed someone. I turned on my sirens and blue lights and headed to the accident. As I got on the bus, he was already arrested, and the ambulance was already there as well. As I was about to leave the bus, I heard a loud bang, and a man on the bus fell down. He was shot through the window by a man who was wearing a black hoodie. He immediately ran. I ran out of the bus and went to the boot of my car. I got my MP5 SF out, which was a large rifle with sniper capabilities. I ran after the suspect and radioed in. They gave me an order of critical shot, which meant I could shoot to kill the suspect. He ran through the town center and went to the left. I was worried about public safety as he had a large rifle as well. I realized instead of running after him, I needed to get on a roof and shoot down. I went to this building that had views of the right and left. It took me 5 minutes, and I was worried that he would have run away by now. As I got to the roof, I turned my gun to the sniper level. I used the eyepiece to scan, and I saw a man in a black hoodie running. I fired a shot, and he fell to the ground. By the time I got there, more armed policemen came to the area. I was shocked to see Callum. He was the one who followed me in the car behind me, and that shot in the bus was meant for me. But he missed. Callum was dead. I felt sad, but also relieved that this was all over. The man shot in the bus survived, and I was promoted for my diligent work.
Vậy lý do kinh dị là gì
không?
Chưa hiểu. Không, cái gọi là cái đoạn cuối thì không phải là kinh dị nhiều lắm, nhưng thực sự là hay. Nó mang nhiều yếu tố mà làm mình suy nghĩ rất là nhiều. Đây là một video hay, thực sự là một video hay. Mình cùng các bạn đã có những trải nghiệm hay và thú vị, nhưng thực sự là giờ này là kinh vãi đái luôn rồi. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều đã theo dõi reaction này của Virus. Các bạn thích đoạn nào nhất, các bạn ấn tượng với đoạn nào nhất, nhớ tag lại để lại. Và nhớ fan kinh dị để các bạn ủng hộ video thì tôi sẽ làm tiếp tục những video kinh dị giống như này. Nhưng mà tôi sợ quá à. Mẹ ơi, đừng quên bỏ lại một like, comment và share cho Virus nha. Thế nha, nhớ đấy nhớ follow TikTok nhá.